Welcome to the Unofficial Steelers Podcast, the podcast so unofficial it doesn't have a home. Here's your host, from In Hindsight, Nathan Heitz. From Steelers Nation Australia, Mark Davison. And from State of the Steelers, Daniel J. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is another episode of the Unofficial Steelers Podcast. I'm actually on this one this time. So good to be back here, guys. To all you who are here in the chat, Jared Devil, appreciate you always being here, man. Thank you for your support. Good to see you in the comment section. Steelers fan, always glad to see you in the chat. Daniel, yeah, we're back, and the thing is, we're back, but this isn't like what we've been doing. We're finally about what is the day today? We're 4 days away from training camp, Daniel. So we're finally getting in the thick of things. We're finally transitioning into that time. And really once the first day of August hits, man, it's going to be 10 days before the first game.
Yeah, so, man, I'm excited.
Finally, it feels like it's been a while, but dude, it's a lot of people's favorite time of the year because of football. A lot of people love the month, really once you start getting to September, especially as we start getting in closer to fall. Can't wait for that. But it's just a great feeling when football is approaching. It's a great feeling when it's really finally here, even if it's training camp and preseason, because we're going to be able to have football the rest of the year until February.
Dude, 100%, man. This is the time where optimism should be at its highest. You know, everybody's healthy. There are new pieces in places where we as fans could see where weaknesses last year, for instance, the inside linebacker position, that has been overhauled. You know, we've seen additions to the offensive line. You know, there's been a lot of moves that have gone down this offseason. I think that, you know, for it being, you know, from the time that last year ended, you know, through the draft, through free agency, this has been, you know, Omar Khan's first at everything up to this point. Last year, by this point, he was the general manager. Kevin Colbert, you know, his tenure ended after the drafting of Kenny Pickett and last year's draft. So he stuck around through that point. And so I think looking at what Omar Khan has done this offseason, I give him an A+. Now, I know that a realistic grade can't be given until probably after the season, until we've seen, you know, how these players that have been acquired, whether by a free agency or draft, you know, how they turned out. Did they turn into a player that elevated the team? Did the team go places where right now we are so optimistic to see? You know, I think that's going to be the answer to that question. But to this point, I've liked the way he's been aggressive. I like the manner in which he's taking care of business here recently. He just extended Alex Highsmith. Congratulations to Alex. He is now in I believe, the top 10 outside linebackers as far as top pay goes. You know, well-deserved, 14.5 sacks last year. What are your thoughts on Alex Highsmith's extension?
I think it's great. He's somebody who's gotten better each year.
Yeah, that's true.
All 3 years, from when he took over for Bud Dupree when Dupree got hurt his rookie year until up to this point, he's gotten better each year. Now we know that some production slowed down a little bit when TJ Watt went out, but the end of the day, the guy had 5 forced fumbles. He had 14.5 sacks. He was a constant presence defensively. He was probably easily, however you want to order it, between him, Minka last year, whoever you want to consider was the most valuable defender on our team throughout the season. And it's a pretty good contract at the end of the day. And it could end up being, after this year goes on and even next year, could end up being a bargain of a deal. But they're able to do it because they're not really paying anybody on offense. So do it while you can.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, usually when it comes to these big contracts, they're pretty upfront heavy. You know, majority of the bulk of, you know, money that this player's anticipated to get is going to, and guarantees that is going to happen in the front in a couple of years. And then on the back end, there might be the illusion of a lot of money there, but there'll be the opportunity to, for the Pittsburgh Steelers to protect themselves and things like that. And so with all that said, Alex Highsmith's probably first 2 years are probably going to be the heftiest. We're probably looking at maybe perhaps another 2 years before having to, this year, this upcoming year, the next year, for sure, without having to pay Kenny Pickett, depending on what he's able to do, and seeing at that point, how fast, or how aggressive Omar Khan wants to continue to be.
Right.
I think will solely depend on the success of his aggression right now.
Right.
If it's continued to be an aggressive manner, then I can see, Kenny Pickett getting that extension going into his 4th year, and see him taken care of in the long term, something similar to like, Patrick Mahomes type of deal that it looked very like, highest paid quarterback type of thing, but because of the length and the term extension and how soon they did it, it wasn't that bad. And so I can see something like that happen, but I like the way it's going. I like the way Omar Khan has been aggressive. Levi Willis, or what? What is his name? The quarterback out of Tennessee, Will Levis. There you go.
Will Levis, the one that got drafted to the Titans.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Will Levis.
He just signed.
Would you call him Levi
contract.
Wallace?
Yeah.
Yeah, you called him Levi Wallace.
No, I called him Levi Willis.
Oh, Levi Willis.
There's my dyslexia just kind of kicked in, and I got those names backwards.
Willis is on the team still.
Right. He just signed his contract. The next big contract to be signed right now is Joey Porter Jr.'s. Do you think he gets signed by the time training camp starts?
Yeah, he'll probably get signed or shortly after. Just I know there's some kinks and stuff like that. There's NFLPA and crap like that's trying to get through, but it's not even anything to worry about. These rookie contracts always get signed. Devin, what's up, man? Welcome to the show. Appreciate you tuning in. Yeah, so Daniel's pretty spot on with everything. Like it's definitely the time of year in terms of everybody's optimism. What's like a better feeling? Do you think it's a better feeling when you are like in like the anticipation feeling, or you think it's a better feeling when it's a little bit more reality and it's actually finally here? Like if like regular season base and stuff.
It depends, man. If your team's doing well, the reality stuff is the better feeling. But I think every year, I personally every year go into it very optimistic. I see a team that can win 17 games every single season going into preseason. And usually about the quarter way into the season is when I start to realize the reality of the team on where they possibly could
start to come down.
Be. Right, exactly. Well, if they're doing bad, there's been some years where I've stayed up there, 2005 or 2004, Ben Roethlisberger goes in there. I mean, I'll tell you what, dude, I thought, this was the next dynasty, which to a certain extent, I think the Steelers, if they end up pulling it out against Green Bay, three rings in that short period of time, like that could have been considered a dynasty. And so, man, what could have been? Well, anyways, so, there's been years where I've stayed up there and been super homer, but like last year I was up there, I thought, hey, we haven't seen what Matt Canada can do as far as an offensive coordinator. I've heard all this, hoopla that, while he was an offensive coordinator at Pitt, that they had all these points and they were able to do this stuff. And it was imaginative and he was up and coming. And this is what, the NFL was doing. They were going and getting college offensive coordinators that were doing some, unorthodox things when it comes to their play calls. And, I knew that pairing him with Ben Roethlisberger wasn't the best match. So, going into this season, even with a Mitch Trubisky, who I knew had some wheels, was able to move around, I thought maybe perhaps we would finally get to see something like that. And that wasn't the case. And even when Kenny Pickett came in and, he went up against such a daunting schedule. Yeah, by that time that by the time the bye week came, I don't know if you guys remember, but I was like, willing to call it in and say, we got 3 picks in the top 50 and we're a top 10.
Yeah, I remember
I was so pissed off. And so, Yeah, that's where I'm at, man. It just kind of
Yeah.
depends on where the team goes.
Well, it's not going to be too much longer, Daniel. But now, see, I wasn't really too big on the team last year because there was a lot of uncertainty. So I didn't really have the level of optimism going into the season last year, just because not because like I thought they were going to be bad, but I didn't really know what to expect. And at the end of the day, like you still had going into last year, you still had a suspect O line. Mitch, I wasn't really big on, and Canada was still a question mark. So I kind of scaled back my expectations. And then when like they were really struggling and asked, I was like, I'm honestly kind of not really like surprised. But I did have a feeling once their bye week hit and once Kenny started playing that they were going to get better. And they did.
Yeah.
So now this year is different. This year's different. They had a great draft. They had a great offseason. Omar Khan's first year, blah, blah, blah. The way they finished the year last year is the way you want to do it going into this season, into ultimately year 2 with your quarterback, and you still have a young offense and things like that. You upgraded the offensive line. So there's some more expectations this year. And I think mostly everybody that's a Steeler fan should have optimism, should have a high level of excitement for this upcoming season. Now, Daniel, with where they're at right now and everything, what do you think their floor and ceiling is right now? With
As far as win losses.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
All right. So right now, if everybody stays healthy, that's going to be the key. I think that there's a possibility for some growing pains early on, especially when you have a new inside linebacker crew and a lot of new faces in the secondary. I think there's going to be some growing pains now. The Steelers just paid Alex Highsmith, which I think is huge, and you're going to need him throughout training camp because the last thing Steelers need is for him to do a hold in because of money, contract situation, go in and play very late in preseason, and then come have a history of groin or hamstring issues that usually plague players who do hold-ins and holdouts. And so, I was very happy that we're able to take care of that without those issues, happening, because I think that the front, defensive front, is going to be super important for this defense.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to compensate for that inside linebacker group and those new pieces in the secondary by having pressure on the offense. And so I think that's going to be a great, tool that they're going to be going into, but there's going to be some growing pains. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and say that I think the floor is probably around 9 wins. I don't see this team going backwards any at all. I do, and I would be very disappointed if they stayed the same, at 9 wins. But I think that is the floor. I don't see them going backwards. And I can see, the ceiling being somewhere around 13 wins.
Mm-hmm. Wouldn't that be great?
That would be amazing.
Especially in year 2 with your quarterback. That'd be fantastic.
That would be a huge boost to his confidence, not just for him, but for the team and the expectation.
The organization, right?
The city, the whole 9 yards. So it's the nation. And so, 13 wins, I think, is somewhere with it. And I think it's realistic. I don't think, we have to see how this team comes together. Obviously, they got some new pieces in a couple of important places. And so if they can come together appropriately, I don't see this team going in and not being able to compete with any team in the NFL. Last season, that wasn't the case. If the Steelers were going to go up against the likes of the Buffalo Bills, the Philadelphia Eagles, or the Kansas City Chiefs, I think it was like a miracle if you thought that they were going to be able to come out of that with a victory, given their performance and the inability to put up points against those teams that could.
Yeah, so absolutely. Now with what was I going to say?
What about yours? Where do you think? Where do you think their floor and their ceiling is?
Yeah, I don't like to view them as a team like not like they with them winning 9 last year. I don't like to see them, and I don't see them in terms of their floor and taking it into account. Like, okay, Canada's bad, injuries, certain players not taking a leap forward, all that stuff is in consideration when you really look at the floor of the team. I'll say probably like 8 or 9, because when you look at the team last year, they won 9, and it's hard to see them take any type of step back when they ultimately got better, and they're set up for more success this year than they were last year. So I think that's a fair type of floor. When you look at a ceiling, all things considered, schedule, stuff like that, I think 12's good. I like 12. I like that number in terms of like, and that's not even like everything has to go perfect for them to hit 12. I don't even think that at all. I think like, hey, a lot of things go well. You're fairly healthy throughout the year. It doesn't even necessarily mean that Canada has to take a huge jump forward necessarily, but you have more production offense. Your red zone efficiency is better. You're getting turnovers on defense. You're being the defense that you expect your defense to be, even better than last year, which as long as they're healthy, probably should, right? So I think that it doesn't even have to be, okay, everything has to go perfect. They got to get the turnovers. Kenny's got to take the big jump. Najee's got to rush for 1,300 yards. Like Pickens has to have 1,000. No, not at all. Like they can stay healthy. Certain things go right that you hope and expect them to do. Yeah, I think that's a good ceiling there.
Where do you see they falling more or less? So you're saying between 8 and 12, where do you realistically think, like right now today, that they would be at? Do you think that, like, for instance, me, I'm at 9 and 13. Right. And I think 13 is, if those things bounce the right way, if everybody stays as healthy as possible, they have some wins that, luck is what luck isn't. And, I think that there's going to be at least about 11 to 12 games, probably leaning more towards the 11 games where I'm saying, this team's definitely could win those games. Because, there's a possibility that they drop a game or two to a team that they shouldn't. And so, I'm saying, I think that the floor and the ceiling is there, and I'm putting the Steelers probably maybe at 12. I think 12 is a good number as far as a realistic number that they can get. And I think 13 would be one that, if they overachieved a little bit, so to speak. And so, are you closer to 12 than 8?
Yeah, for sure. I don't see the team regressing from last year. The way that they finished the year is how you wanted to. They got better on the line. They had a good draft, which at least a couple of those guys will be productive in year one. You have you add some different guys to positions. Now, is it all going to work out? No, it's not. Is the inside linebacking group going to work out? I don't know. That's probably one of the more concerns when you look at the team. It's hard for me to see Holcomb and Roberts both working out or both playing to a level that is higher than what you would expect. So that's kind of something there. But yeah, for sure. I think that they'll be better than what they were last year. They'll be in the I'm not going to sit here and say that they'll win the division, but they could. I think that they'll be right up there with fighting in the North, and I ultimately think they'll be in a playoff spot. I really do, and I think that that's going to be something that is going to be a good step in opening your long-term window,
right,
with everything. So, I like their team. I like what they did, and that's not me being a Steeler fan. I do. You got to see how certain things unfold and stuff, but it doesn't mean that every single thing has to unfold perfectly or anything for them to, even if they do overachieve a little bit, or even if they just win 10 games and get in or something like that. Like, at the end of the day, every team has holes. Every team is going to have holes every single year. There's always holes on every team. It's all about how do you minimize that? How do you get better there and stuff like that? So when we look at the Steelers in terms of holes, corner's a little different. How's that going to work out? We have to wait and see. Inside linebacker's different. We have to wait and see. How are some of the younger guys they drafted this year? Have to wait and see. But they have a defense that has been good or they have a core on defense that has been around for the last 4 seasons or so and has been pretty productive for the most part. They always lead in sacks. They're going to have one of the better front sevens in the league. So And when you look at what they're paying on defense, you got to expect that their defense is going to be more in the upper echelon of teams. When you look at their offense, it's pretty young, but it's a good young core of guys. But it's got to take a step forward. You improved a little bit. You improved on your line, right? You added Allen Robinson. Jalen Warren had a good first year last year. Najee Harris had a good second half of the year after he got healthy. Canada, I think, is the big outlier there. But it can be an offense that it needs to be an offense that's definitely better than last year, for sure. There's no question about it. But it can be an offense even just in terms of realistic. Hey, I think if the offense can average around 24 a game, I think I would live with that.
Yeah.
I would live with that.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a full touchdown.
That doesn't mean you have to bring Canada back next year.
No.
Like, even if they win 10 or 11 games and get in the playoffs, that doesn't mean you have to bring Canada back next year.
No.
If there's still things left to be desired offensively, there's still some things left on the table, you could have been better at. Doesn't mean you have to bring them back.
Last year the players were somewhat vocal early on in the season about their dissatisfaction of Canada's play calling. I think it was DK from DK Sports. It came out multiple occasions and kind of said that he had put it out there based on what he had heard from players, from folks and staff, that they at the bye week it was anticipated that Matt Canada wasn't going to be the offensive coordinator going into this year. Mm-hmm. And he was able to, I guess, do enough to convince those players, or the staff especially, or Rooney and Tomlin most importantly, to keep him around.
Yeah.
Now, I think that the playbook was minimized, and perhaps maybe the reason why Canada didn't look so stressed, even though there was so many players that were coming out and there was all these sources coming out, is because maybe he had the back of Mike Tomlin. And I think that if he had the back of Mike Tomlin, it may have been because Mike Tomlin handcuffed him. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Kenny Pickett was recently on the Cam Hayward show, Not Just Football. And did you happen to catch his podcast?
I didn't watch it. I know he was on it.
He talked about the playbook, and he was talking about how it's going to be opened up and that it's significantly different this year than last year already. And I'm excited about it. I think that's going to be the case. I think that for sure, 100%. I mean, I know a lot of folks just kind of pass by the context of last season, not realizing that they had an offense prepared for Mitch Trubisky. I don't think it was Mike Tomlin's idea. Given, I think it was Mike Tomlin's idea to keep Canada and all that good stuff. But I don't think it was Mike Tomlin's idea to put in Kenny Pickett initially. I think that may have been a push from Mr. Rooney himself.
Well, I think Tomlin flopped, dude. I think he flopped on the quarterback situation last year.
So you think that he was high on Mitch Trubisky, and it just was
and he shouldn't have been.
Right, it was just a dud.
Yeah, I think the rookie should have started the first game of the year.
I don't disagree with you. I don't whatsoever.
And that's not even. I said that even before the season started.
No, I agree. We were both on the same page.
Yeah, we were. And it's okay. Like, coaches are going to look back and recognize certain things they could have did better. Like, no NFL head coach, doesn't matter who it is, isn't prone to making a mistake or slipping up or doing something wrong or something like that. Mm-hmm. But I think majority would be in agreement that he messed it up.
Yeah.
And he went the casual, predictable way of doing it.
I don't disagree with that. I think that that's accurate. I think he wanted to stay away from a rookie quarterback. And I think that had the Steelers started Kenny Pickett last season, I think they're in the playoffs. If they started him in the first game, if you surrounded your offense around him like they did this year in the offseason, like going into it, he knows he's the guy. The offense is tailored to him. I think they win one more game. I think there's a few less interceptions there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it was good though for the team to go through what they did last year, and even in the way they finished it, because they were never really in that type of predicament for quite a long time.
Right.
And I said, even if they finished with a bad record, I think it would have ultimately. Is that what we want for us fans? Of course not, and that's not what the organization wants. But I was saying that, like, when they were 2-6 and stuff like that, I was like, hey, if this is going to be the direction they go the rest of the year, this can honestly be a good thing. This honestly could be a good thing because it's a wake-up call. Weed out the weeds that you need to freaking get rid of. But then they got better, and they still did make changes, and they upgraded at certain spots that we all knew needed to happen. So I think it was a good thing that both things happened. Their struggle and then the way they finished.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, last year was not the Steelers' year. Even if they were to have found their way into
but like,
playoffs,
it just wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't the year. This year, I think they have more of an opportunity. They did a fantastic job in the draft. But let's transition to the upcoming training camp. Who do you think, if anybody, who is most likely to show up in a tractor, in a hot air balloon, in something outlandish?
Oh, good grief.
Who are you thinking?
Boy, oh boy. Who's going to make a good showing here? I'm trying to think of somebody on a team that would ooze that off. I could see someone like Cole Holcomb like showing up in a freaking if you want to say a tractor, I could see him pulling up in a tractor in overalls or something like that.
Right.
See him doing something like that. Geez, who else is there that could maybe do something? Maybe Joey Porter Jr. Maybe his dad drives him or something like that, and then drops him off.
Him off
like the son, instead of dropping him off to school
with a backpack.
with a backpack on. Maybe something like that goes on, but they don't have the diva type S guys really anymore, which is good. Like that would maybe do something weird or funky, but I don't know if I'm gonna pull a couple guys, maybe something like that. I think that'd be kind of fun. See,
I'm thinking I'd be disappointed if he doesn't show up in something. It would be George Pickens. I'd like to see what he'd come up with and come in. I know his attitude and his bad behavior and all this other stuff is more myth than reality. You know what I'm saying? He's just a physical dude, a guy that has a lot of heart and not so much diva and more, like I said, heart and things like that. But yeah, I'd like to see what he shows up in. Who would you be most surprised showing up in something crazy? You think Kenny Pickett has it in him to show up in something?
I don't think he does, man. I think he's just going to keep it what he normally does. I'd be surprised if did you want like a realistic option or just something that like somebody I know never would?
Like a realistic, because like for instance, Eli Rogers one year showed up in a tractor and a hard hat. DK talks about this story, and he didn't make the team that year. Which everybody was like, man, you really shouldn't have. Like he thought he was AB or
which I didn't understand that anyway. He wasn't bad.
Right, yeah, exactly. Well, I can't remember who the Steelers ended up picking up as a slot guy that they wanted over him that year.
What was it? Was it Switzer? Was that the year Switzer was it?
It may have been Switch. No, I think it was my God, his number 16. I can't think of his name. He was from another team for a while. I think it may have been him. Okay. But it could have been Switzer as well. But yeah, he didn't make the team. And I think there was a play the year before in playoffs where he dropped the ball. It was a difficult catch to make, but I think that maybe perhaps some confidence was lost there. But he showed up in a tractor, least person that you would expect to probably do it, and he did it. They probably you would he wasn't a starter, so I think that's probably another thing you wouldn't expect from somebody if they weren't a starter.
I'll say like Calvin Austin or something like that. If he freaking does something out of the blue, maybe try to get his name out there a little bit more. Like, hey, don't forget about me. I'm showing up, gonna do something crazy.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, Calvin Austin would be somebody that would be a little bit different. For me, the last person I think I would expect, but could possibly show up in something crazy, Connor Hayward. I think he might. Yeah, he might show. Yeah, he might show up in something crazy, but he may not.
Yeah, he may not.
Do you think Kenny Pickett still has that stolen Genesis that they took from him?
Yeah, I bet he still does.
You think so? Man,
yeah,
I would have.
He does. Or if not, it's somewhere like in his garage or something.
Right. Man, because those things lose value once they're stolen. They're not the same.
I know. I don't know. It's hard to say, but with training camp, how many? Let's think of the position battles here that we got. Like safety is pretty locked down. Corner, I think for the most part, is pretty good.
Well, I think the slot cornerback is going to be
Other than
a,
that,
a
other than
position
that
battle.
piece, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know. Shannon Sullivan, we'll see what he brings to the table. We'll
yeah,
see if they want to utilize anybody else in that spot. After your first three, and this is what concerns me with corner. After your first three, it's pretty low there.
Mhm.
It's pretty low. And if there's an injury, if somebody struggles, what's ultimately the backup plan?
Right.
You know, James Pierre, he's shown that he can step in from if he has to step in on a pinch, that he can do a few things. But other than that, like it's pretty thin from what we know of, unless there's somebody that impresses and takes advantage of their opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, how comfortable do you feel that maybe perhaps the Steelers are putting a lot of eggs in the seventh round pick Corey Trice and a second round
Yeah,
pick?
you have him too.
You
Yeah,
know,
if they like him a lot. Yeah, sometimes sometimes you might have those diamonds in the rough. It's hard to say. Like, I don't want to put a label on Corey Trice. I'm not going to sit here and say he's part of the future or anything like
right?
that, because you're just jumping the gun. The guy's seventh
No,
round
for
pick,
sure.
right? Sure, he could have been a fourth or fifth round given what's been talked about with him. But it definitely makes for, with what he was doing in OTAs and even coming out of the draft, definitely a guy to keep an eye on, to possibly, if he's somebody that shows good things through camp and even in the preseason, absolutely. I love to see it work out. That'd be great.
Mhm.
But yeah, so it's you have a few young guys like him, or a couple other guys that run drafted that are going to get some time. But it's a little short there at corner. It's still short at inside linebacker. I still think they'll add somebody, but I think really when you look at the rest of their defense, like it's hard to ultimately get better than that.
Yeah, I mean, unless somebody gets cut, that's just a surprise. You know,
Yeah,
during training camp at the end of preseason before the season starts, a Joe Hayden like release that the Steelers ended up
yeah,
taking advantage of.
always, and it's going to happen all in one day now. It's all going to be one day.
True story. And so maybe perhaps if there's like a middle linebacker that gets dropped somewhere that the Steelers have their eye on,
Right.
or something like that. I mean, that might
Yeah.
be where they could benefit. But yeah, I think this team is pretty solid. In my opinion, I think the biggest question marks, I mean, are obviously going to be can the second year players take that jump? Can it be a
Yeah.
jump and not a slump?
Yeah.
That's usually what ends up happening when it comes to sophomore years. And so if these players can make the jump and not the slump, then
But
I
I
think this
think
team
too
is fine.
it works better in Kenny's favor, because when you look at some of these quarterbacks in the past that have taken a downfall in year two, or like maybe weren't as good, they had a pretty good year one.
Mhm.
Kenny didn't, like, he struggled his first 4 or 5 games.
Right.
And they were in a hard spot with the team, and they were in a hard spot offensively. It was a broken system. They were in a hard spot with their schedule. And then he started to get better. But like, it's definitely not what he wanted. It's definitely not what he would have liked for it to be.
Mhm.
So I think it's more uh I think it's more so that there isn't really like a slump type thing for him, because when we really look at it, yeah, he played better and got better as the second half of the season went on, but he didn't have like a year like some of these other first round quarterbacks have had, and then they've taken a drop in year two. Like, it's more so for me like him taking the leap forward like Trevor Lawrence did,
Right.
than it is more so like the rookie Baker Mayfield had, and then we saw how he was his second year.
Yeah. Well, I think Baker Mayfield, he's yeah, he let the commercials and stuff get to him. I think if he worked on his on his craft a little bit more. He's he was the Browns version of I don't know, Juju, maybe somebody who didn't care so much about about the football, or appeared to have not cared about as much as about the football, and cared more about this online personality. With Baker Mayfield's example would probably be all the commercials he was creating and things like that.
Right.
But I saw some clips of him and Kyle Trask they look like they're in rare mid-season form. I'm not sure if you've seen the overthrows. They were showing. Yeah, they were showing these clips of Baker Mayfield throwing some passes and not connecting in practice. No pressure, no nothing.
Well, it sounds about right.
Yeah, I had commented. I was like, man, he's in rare mid-season form already. It's
I don't see him playing the whole year.
Nah. You think who do they have? They have Trask, and then who's behind them?
They have
him. They get somebody else.
I think, don't they have like Blaine Gabbert still?
I think so.
I'm pretty sure they still have him.
I know. Hey, what do you think about the? Oh, go ahead. What do you think about the new Madden ratings?
The Madden ratings?
Yeah.
Well, we know every year that they screw up ones. The TJ Watt rating is absolutely horrendous.
Mm-hmm. Minka too.
It's horrendous. He's led the league in sacks 2 years. Sure, okay, he was hurt last year, so maybe he won't be a 99 because he missed half the season or so last year. But he's won Defensive Player of the Year, and then meanwhile you have a guy like Myles Garrett who has never come close to Defensive Player of the Year, and TJ's ultimately a better player, does more than he is, and then you have even Michael Parsons too. Like, I mean, give me a break.
Mm-hmm.
He's the same overall as Von Miller. That's an issue. He's the same overall as Max Crosby. That's a problem.
I think they even made like Kendrick Green like higher than like Chicks Okorafor and Dan Moore.
Okorafor's like a 70. It's terrible. Like he's not that good, but he's not bad.
Right.
Yeah, like Minka's like, yeah, sure. I think Kenny's is fine. I think the receivers are fine. The running backs are fine. The linebackers, whatever. Cam's a 93. I think that's fine. Pat Pete's an 85. That's fine. But yeah, it's not even just for the Steelers. Like, they freaking screw up ratings for every team.
Yeah, no, they definitely do. I always go
like
in
Lamar's
there
a 91, and he's been hurt the last 2 years and hasn't done crap. And then Jalen Hurts is an 88. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's all right. I go in there and
or an 87. I think Dak's rated higher than Jalen Hurts.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he is.
Yeah. Maybe they got their grades from PFF.
Yeah, well, they probably did. But yeah, so really, when Daniel, I think we just really both agree on when we look at this team right now, a lot of optimism, a lot of reason to be excited. We expect them to be better than they were last year. We expect more consistency throughout the year, like not having those games where it's freaking over in the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Not having those type of games. Not to say they can't lose by double digits or anything, but not having those type of games where it's just blowout city.
Yeah, we can't get any more of those Buffalo Bills Eagles type games.
And I don't think we're really going to see that. But yeah, I think we can really both agree. Like, yeah, there's going to be some growing pains there. You still have some new things, so there's going to be a little bit here, a little bit there. But overall, we expect more consistency. We expect a leap forward into year 2 here, from some guys, from the team in general, and we expect them to be better and probably be just be a team that's competing in the division and competing for a playoff spot ultimately. So I think really that's where a lot of people sit with this team. But at the end of the day, it's out of our hands. And we just have to sit back and let everything play out and see how it goes and hope for the best ultimately. But I think we all are pretty excited about that. Dak's always overrated. Yeah, I mean, he really pretty much always is. Like, he's not a bad quarterback or anything, but he just can't take the leap forward with the team. They're always kind of really in the same spot. So it is what it is. But they have a good team though. Still this year, they've still put together a good team. All Afton, hello. Appreciate you just sitting in the interstate. Well, might be able to keep you busy for a few minutes here while you're sitting there. But I was going to ask you something else. What the heck was I going to ask you here? I don't remember what I was going to ask you. I really
so do you think that, where do you see the, do you think that Kenny Pickett plays all 3 preseason games?
I'm going to lean toward yes. I'm going to lean toward yes. If he shows, okay, I'm going to lean toward yes. Unless he shows like, to the point and like where, okay, like, dude, you don't even need the last game. Like, okay, like you're good.
Right. So he shows up, balls out right
Easily
away.
2 out of 3. Easily 2 out of 3. He will. The third one, if he plays a third one, might just be more like, hey, we just want you to stay loose, stay fresh. Maybe there's a few other things they just kind of want to get him ready for. But like unless they see like, hey, like, dude, the things we wanted to see, you've already done early, like throughout the first game or two, like you're chilling.
Yep.
Like we don't need you for the third game.
Yeah, him and maybe some of the offensive line, Isaac Seumalo, James Daniels, Mason Cole. I think those are guys that I can anticipate seeing playing for sure 2 games. I'm not sure if they play the third. Kind of depends on like what you said. Najee Harris is another guy I can see that maybe gets some time off in preseason. Offensively, I think the rest of the offense is going to play a significant amount during the preseason to build that chemistry and camaraderie.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and on the defensive side, I see Cam. I don't think Cam's playing more than maybe 1 game in preseason.
Yeah, TJ, I wouldn't play him too much
same.
either. He doesn't need to. He doesn't need to.
Yeah, I wouldn't play either one
Let
of those
the
2 guys.
linebackers play. They can play, right? Golden can play. You can have Leal and Ogunjobi and a little bit of Pat Pete. Doesn't need too much, but Porter, Wallace, Trice, let those guys go.
100%. And so Larry Ogunjobi can be a guy also. I can see them kind of watching his numbers. I think Holcomb might be a guy that they watch the numbers because he's coming off of an injury. And had he been healthy, and I know that right now they're kind of watching his snap count throughout training camp and OTAs because of his injury from last season. So I think that he might be a guy just because of that might be on like a snap count and could see some time off.
Right.
But yeah, the rest of the team for sure, 100%. You know, they need to be out there. They need to build that chemistry. They need to be able to go because the first opponent, although right now we don't know who their quarterback is no slouch in the 49ers. And they're going to come into Acrisure Stadium ready to play. And the Steelers better be up for the challenge because, they got a dynamic offense. They're just a quarterback away from probably being a Super Bowl contender again.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, they have a great team, great defense, great coaching. Quarterback, who knows ultimately, who really knows. But it'll be a test. The first game will be a test for sure. The first game of the year, it will be a test early on. So I'd rather play them right now, though. I'd rather play San Francisco the first week of the year rather than toward the end of the season.
I agree with you. Play a team early. You can, while they also don't. When you look at teams that are doing a lot of motions and a lot of runs and a lot of different things like that, timing may not be there right away. So you might be able to catch them off guard or off time.
Yeah.
In those situations.
It's a better opportunity.
For sure, 100%.
Yeah. But Daniel, you want to end it there then?
That works for me, my man. I got the family coming in.
Yeah, Daniel's got some he's got some family coming over and stuff. I have a couple things I have to go do, guys. But we went about 43 minutes here. Pretty good on the show. We'll take that any day. But yeah, so we just wanted to make an episode before training camp really begins. It starts up on the 26th, 4 days from now. But it's just a great feeling, guys. Great feeling that football's really here. Really, once we hit the beginning of August, we're not going to have any days without football until February. So it's a great feeling. It's going to be exciting. A lot of things to talk about on this channel, on Daniel's channel, my channel, even Mark's channel. So, but guys, all you guys in the chat, thank you all for being here, each and every one of you, even though it's earlier on in the day than when we normally do it. So good to see you all. Aquatic, Afton, Daredevil, George, Jeremiah, Devin, Steelers fan, all you guys, even those who did not comment in the chat, who tuned in. Thank you all so much for your support. So Daniel and I will be back, probably on Saturday, because training camp, I think, whatever day is the 26th. What is that on? Was that Tuesday?
It's like, like Tuesday or Wednesday, somewhere around there.
Tuesday or Wednesday. So then if we get back Saturday, we can, if we do a show Saturday, we can kind of talk about anything that happened during the week.
Yes, sir. We'll be
Like
on my channel.
Yeah, it'll be on Daniel's channel next, guys. Brian, hello, appreciate it. Yeah, so we'll be on Daniel's channel next, guys. So keep up with him and everything that he's doing. But yeah, it's approaching, man. It's approaching. It's exciting. Football, fall, all that stuff is close to being here, guys. So we're all pretty excited about it. The only thing with fall though is like, even though like August, September hit, like it's still like summer, but now at least up north, I don't know how it is out there, but like with fall, like really once you kind of start getting into September, you can like, you start to see the leaves start to fall down, you start to smell it in the air, right? And weather starts to kind of start transitioning into more so a little bit cooler. It's a great feeling. So,
out here, my man, in September, it's like the devil's armpit still. And so it doesn't get like that until like December. And then even at that, it lasts like 3 weeks and then comes back to heat.
It's still pretty freaking hot throughout the fall time out there.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, it's probably around October is when it starts to cool down out here. September, you're looking at probably low 90s.
It's still pretty hot.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we've had like 15, maybe 20 something days in the 100s right now. A few days over 110. I'll take 90s.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure you would. It still sounds about right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so it's definitely exciting just that we have all that really coming up. And man, dude, I'm telling you, once August 1st hits, it's gonna be a great feeling.
Yes, sir.
It really is. It's almost here. So Daniel and I'll be back next Saturday, guys, on his channel. We will see you there. Thank you all so much for your support.